the mission.
And I don't know if it's just the fighter pilot or the operator.
We think of it as, I never got to kill somebody.
How do you apply this to someone who doesn't necessarily go to work that's life or death?
Jesus knows what's in your heart, and I think that's all that matters. In any combat role, fighter pilot, ground guy, tank, whatever it is, the mission is to go and to kill people. And there's a selfishness in that. And I think a lot of people think they may have a failed career if they never get the opportunity to take somebody's life in combat. And that's how we think of it. Mm-hmm. We think of it as, I never got to kill somebody.
But is this how we're trained?
I think
like that?
I think it is. It may be not how we're trained, but it's how the culture is. Mm-hmm. Because, and how fucked up is that? Mm-hmm. If you think about it. I never got the opportunity to fucking kill somebody.
To employ an anger, yeah.
Whereas, most normal people would say, I never had to do that. Mm-hmm. I never had to kill somebody. And so I think the culture, makes you, it manifests that inside of you. But at the same time, when you're talking about meeting, God or Jesus and answering, to all those scenarios that you played out, you know what I mean? There's also, there is a selfishness, because I know what you're talking about. But it also comes down to, you're a Christian, we're going to get into, that, your experience later. But, I think it all comes down to what's in your heart, right? You think you're doing the right thing.
Right.
They think they're doing the right thing. Mm-hmm. They're just doing what they believe is right. And you're just doing what you believe is right. Right?
Absolutely. And if you don't do that thing, in several employments I had, quite a few, it's like, if I don't, because right now they're getting shot at. Mm-hmm. And who knows how that's going to develop. They're hunkered down. The threat's got RPGs, and they're pinned down. And so if I do hesitate, or I miss a switch, or I'm willing to make that decision based on knowing it's helping my side, I guess.
Yeah.
No, it's...
And they're thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
If they don't plant that bomb on the side of the road and kill Americans, then more of them are going to die. Yeah. It's really kind of, it's just fascinating to think about.
Yeah. And
because everybody is legitimately just doing
what they
think is right.
So who sets the guidelines, who... God.
Yeah. But when did that kind of stuff start entering your head?
It was always there. Because there's always that moment when you're pushing. There's always the free fall of the munition. The time of flight, anywhere from 20 seconds out to a minute, depending on, how you're releasing it. But that whole time is just like, it's very compartmentalized. Mm-hmm. It's like, check and double check that I've done everything that I possibly can to mitigate any collateral damage concerns. But then the whole flight home, you're thinking about it. And then going through the debrief and analyzing the BDA, after the fact. I mean, I don't know if you ever fully get over it, other than, it's there and I'll have to answer for it.
Well, I mean, on the other, we're not talking about civilian casualties here, but then on the other hand, everybody's very aware of the consequences. Everybody involved, is aware of what the ultimate consequence is. You are aware what happens if you go down. You talk, orange jumpsuits, beheadings, burning you alive, whatever, torture. And they're just as aware of the consequences if they get compromised. That there's going to be a 500-pound bomb, that lands on their vehicle. And so, it's voluntary. Mm-hmm. Everybody on both sides is fully aware of what the consequences of engaging in war is.
I guess that's why we sign up to serve.
Yep. So, I don't know. I think a lot about it, but, the whole thing is, Jesus knows what's in your heart. And I think that's all that matters.
Absolutely. We're definitely influenced by our experiences too. And that's why, especially the older I get, the more centered I want to be on following Jesus. And I mean, look how screwed up our world is. And it's easy to get caught thinking the sky is falling and the world's going to end. But if you're centered in your faith, we're not in control. We're all sinful. We have free will, and that's probably our demise, but we're not in control. I hope I made the decisions that I did in combat for the right reasons.
How long were you over there?
Fighter squadrons typically do like 6-month rotations. So that time was 6 months in 2015. Before that, they were anywhere from 90 days to 6 months. We were coming and going. We'd spend half Aviano, that central located. I mean, you barely had time to enjoy the country because you were constantly coming and going. You'd come back to the States to do red flag exercises, big coalition force type exercises with hundreds of aircraft at Nellis Air Force Base in Las Vegas, where we spent 6 years for various assignments. But yeah, that deployment was 6 months.
How many missions did you fly, do you know?
I was flying every other day, probably every 2 days sometimes. I was in a leadership position, so you got the squadrons, and then above that is the group and the wing. I was at the group level, but flying with the squadrons. I was just old into my career. I was 20-year point, so I would fly as much as they'd let me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy, man. I haven't done one of these type of interviews in a little bit.
Yeah, it's that you strike a chord with the whole feeling complete in a career. And I don't know if it's just the fighter pilot or the operator mentality.
It's the warfighter mentality, man. It is the warrior mentality.
Because that is certainly how it is in our world. I've done things that take me off that track with the Thunderbirds and Test and Aggressors. But it's almost a blessing and a curse.
I mean, you get to experience, maybe not you experience something that, I mean, there's just next to nobody that experiences that.
No. In fact, I've been speaking more keynotes and stuff, and one of my stories is combat, and it's like I almost have to take a step back, because even doing interviews and talking about it, it's like you got to put this in perspective. How do you apply this to someone who doesn't necessarily go to work that's life or death situation, other than, our frontline providers? It's a tough conversation to have too. I'm struggling to articulate exactly how I feel at this point. It's just because it's definitely there. No doubt of it, especially as you get older, and kids. And
Would you want your kids to go to war?
would I want them to go to war? Oof.
If your kid wanted to be an F-16 pilot or whatever the equivalent is today,
You call me old?
you know,
It is. It is. It's
Would you
almost a
want
legacy platform.
would you want them to have those experiences? No matter where you're watching Shawn Ryan Show from, if you get anything out of this, please like, comment, subscribe, and most importantly, share this everywhere you possibly can. And if you're feeling extra generous, please leave us a review on Apple and Spotify podcasts.